Hi, Daniela.
Hi, Jana.
Thank you for
Yeah.
joining us today. We chatted extensively, you and me, yesterday about your journey through heroin addiction, being on the streets of Cape Town to where you are today. You have a stable job, you are back with your child, you're back with your husband. We're going to talk a bit today about your journey from where you were 10 years ago to where you are now. If you look back on your life, and you've shared this story on social media as well, would you have thought that you'd be sitting here today?
No, never in a million years.
And how proud are you of yourself today?
I am proud. I've got moments where it's it really hits me, and I realize that I've come such a long way in such a short space of time. We've been able to build up quite a lot, but I also just got to keep on reminding myself, you know, just every single day to stay humble, to do the best that you can in every day.
And since you've been sharing your story on social media, you've had a lot of reactions to that story. And people can go and read the full story at the link that we'll add underneath this video. But just give us a brief overview of what you've been sharing on social media and what your story has been over the past 20 years. It's not a brief story, but if you can just give the viewers a brief idea of where you've come from to where you are today.
Okay, so when I got clean, um, about a year after that, this was about 3 years ago, I started sharing about where I come from. It's been a long journey. For the last 15 years, I struggled with the heroin addiction. And you can read in my story how it progressed. But um, I think things got really, my page and my story got noticed when I started talking about that I used to stand at the robots in Cape Town in order to enable a heroin addiction. And I'm not the only one. There's many out there that do that. And that comment pulled a lot of traction, and people were asking questions. And that's where I am today, hoping just to inform a little bit more of enabling at the robots.
I must say, after we spoke yesterday, because I'm in Cape Town, I've been driving by the robots and I see people standing there, and then you think twice, because we had the discussion yesterday and you said something very powerful where people want to help and they care and they feel guilt towards the person standing there, but you never know, are you enabling them to take their last hit of their life? Can you explain that in a bit more context?
Okay, so I've also got got some feedback from people who've been a little bit harsh with me and said that I shouldn't generalize. I do understand that there are genuine people out there that have fallen on hard times. But you can't take away from the fact that I would estimate maybe 95% of the people, and I'm specifically talking about the area that I come out of, because I was there, I know, that are standing at the robots are addicted to heroin. And like you said, and I get it, I understand. And the people that are at the robots, um, they do understand and know that, they people feel sorry for them. And I get that you want to help a person and you give a person a 5 rand or 10 rand, but you're just one of many people that go to that robot every single day and feel sorry for this guy. And at the end of the day, it's easier to stand at the robots and beg for money for heroin addiction than to eventually hit rock bottom and say, "Look, I need help."
Yeah, that hit me quite hard when you said that. And it's also quite difficult to explain to children who are in the car with you. and they feel sorry for other people. And obviously we want to spread light and we want to help other people. And I asked you this question yesterday as well. If you ever looked up at the mountain and could see the beauty of life, where were you in your mind in your darkest hours during that time? What was going through your mind whilst you were in this insane addiction that you couldn't get out of? What was going on in your mind?
It's extremely difficult for me to put it into words, but I will try my best and say that, while I was in the heroin addiction, because heroin as well is, you become physically dependent on the substance, and it changes the way that you think. So for me, when I was in a heroin addiction, I was alive, but I wasn't living. I was just surviving for my next hit. I was terribly, terribly sad. So, I had no hope. That's the easiest way that I could put it to you. I didn't want to continue living either, but I went on.
And you said that Frikkie Heffer, who is the owner of the rehab center that eventually helped you to stay clean, was the person he sent someone to you on the street and he said, get on a bus, come to Potch, get better. Can you tell us a bit about that moment, which essentially changed your entire life?
So I was at the robots the one day, and it's a long story, but I'm just going to put it in a nutshell for you. A lady that I knew, that Frikkie knew as well, he phoned and he said to her that she needs to go and look for me. It's come back to him that I relapsed and I'm back on the street. So she came out and looked for me, and by God's grace, she told me afterwards that the first set of robots that she went to in the area that she heard I was in, I was at. And she called me over, and then she said to me that Frikkie had called her and said to her that she needs to put me on a bus and get me to Potch. I'll be honest, I didn't immediately say, look, I'm going to get on a bus today, I'm going to leave. I took a little bit of time, 2 days, but deep down inside I knew I needed to make that decision to get on a bus and go to Potch, because my life depended on it. If you'd see me in the state I was in, I don't think I would have had much longer.
You also said when we spoke that you knew that you were going to die, that this was a moment that you had to decide, am I going to see my child growing up? Because you had a little girl who was staying with your mom at the time, and that you have now regained full custody of again, and she's back with you. You have a very good relationship with her. And you also explained how you struggled in the rehab to get through the withdrawals, and that you wanted to flee, you wanted to give up again. And people hear a lot about, if people are addicted to heroin, they can't ever get off it. How do you respond to that?
It is possible to get off of heroin. It's extremely difficult, but it is so rewarding. I mean, I can clearly remember that day in rehab. I was 9 days into my withdrawals. I hadn't slept at all for 7 days, and everything inside of me wanted to run. And I attempted to run. I tried it. But fortunately, the good people at Hope Again Wellness Center, who were so well trained in their professions, they didn't allow me to leave. Obviously, they didn't force me, but they just had the right words to encourage me to stay. And it was more of an internal battle with myself, knowing what I needed to do and what I wanted to do. And today I'm so grateful that I pushed through. I pushed through the hard days, and I mean, the first 9 days wasn't the only hard 9 days I had. I had many hard days in rehab, but that day I'd made a decision that I was going to push through and that I was going to recover regardless of what happened. And 4 years later, I take it one day at a time. I still get many challenges and struggles, but I think because the decision was made here, it changed everything.
And where you are today, you said you are living a happy, simple life. Your daughter is back with you. How did you repair that relationship with your daughter? Because it's quite incredible. The two of you are very close and you have a very close bond. You and your husband are back together. It's an incredible story that this is how it all worked out. What did you have to do in order to repair that relationship and then build onto it?
So it's not something that I could fix in one day. And I knew that going into recovery, because I attempted it so many times, and I thought, just by the fact of me wanting to recover, prove things to people. But I learned that my words meant nothing anymore because of all the times I promised that I would change and I never changed. So this time I went into my recovery, and I also made a decision that I wouldn't promise anymore. I would just do. And with a relationship with my daughter as well, we have an extremely open relationship where I let her ask questions and I don't get offended. I allow her to tell me how angry she was with me for all the first times in her life that I wasn't there. I wasn't there for her on her first day of school and many other birthdays and Christmases. So it's a progressive journey, you know. Some weeks we do well, other weeks we don't do well, but we get through it and we grow together as a family. So it's not something that we can repair overnight. It's a daily journey. And I think she appreciates that I'm not making promises anymore. I'm just doing what I need to do as a mom.
That's amazing. How does she feel about you sharing your story and being out there and people seeing your face? You've also posted pictures before and after. How does she feel about that?
So I've also asked her about that, because I think it's important for me to also respect the privacy of my family and my daughter and how they feel with me sharing my story um, like I do. And from the word go, when Alex came back, I did sit down with her and I spoke with her, and she said to me, she's fine. She really doesn't mind. But I think as the years have gone by now, she completely grasps it. And for her, it's been a journey. For her, she's learned so much about not just addiction, about the things that lead to addiction. So she's aware now. And this morning, it's so funny, we were sitting in the car, and I said to her, I spoke to a lady, Jana, yesterday about my story, and I told her about how amazing you are. And she's like, what did you tell her, mommy? And I'm like, I told her that, I'm so blessed to have you in my life, and that you're such an amazing person. So we have a very open relationship. There are some times where I do get a little bit resistance from her, and I understand it. I give her space to heal because I get that it's not an overnight process. As long as I show up for her every day, we're going to be okay.
You also spoke about accountability and how you will have to take accountability for the rest of your life, and that what you learn in rehab are tools for your life going forward, and that if you are an addict, you need those tools. How important do you think is it for a recovering addict to realize I have to be accountable not only for the past, but for the future and every single day?
Yeah, it's extremely important, Jana, and sometimes it's a little bit disheartening for me to see when people who go into rehab, especially the family, have this misconception that, okay, I'm going to send my child to rehab now, and when he comes out, they're going to be fine. That couldn't be further from the truth. Because a lot of the times, a person that goes into recovery, firstly, they have no coping skills emotionally. You know, we like little kids. So when something small happens, we blow it completely out of proportion. And usually those kind of things lead us to go back and with the same behavior and go and use to self-medicate. So the tools that are given to you in rehab are extremely important. It's life skills, it's coping skills, it's how to build relationships with your family, and understanding that trust is something that is earned when you go back and they reintegrate you with your family again. It's not an overnight process. So those skills that are given to you in rehab, you won't use it in rehab. It's usually for the time when you leave rehab. And I think it's so important that when parents send the kids to rehab and they come back out, that they stay in touch with a counselor of the person that went, just for accountability. 4 years later, I still have a relationship with my counselor at Hope again. Some weeks we don't talk, some weeks we talk. I just say hello, but I'm accountable. And I know that if I'm struggling, I can pick up the phone and I can say I'm struggling, and then the help is there.
That's amazing. You are very, very, very brave. I want to know from you, obviously people will reach out to you, and I'm sure that they have been doing that. Do you feel that your life path is only just beginning, that this might be the beginning of something much bigger that you cannot even fathom at this moment? Do you have time to answer those people? Are you willing for people to reach out to you? How have you experienced that?
So I've had a lot of feedback, and it's so crazy that from one comment that I made in the group about enabling people at the robots, it just blew up completely. And I've had people, a lot of people that have messaged me, encouraging me, asking for advice on what to do. And then I've had some people that have challenged me, and I get and I understand that people don't really get what happens at robots, and their hearts are in a good place, but they don't have enough information about what actually goes on there. So I do. I spend a lot of my times in the evenings and on weekends speaking to people with kids that are struggling with addiction, or, you know, I'm just a shoulder for somebody that tells me that they're struggling, and I've never met them. And for me, I can't actually really comprehend it all at the moment, that my life can make a difference in somebody else's life. And if that is the case, then I will continue to speak my truth regardless of whether I get resistance or not.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story. I invite all our readers to go and read it. We'll be publishing it in Afrikaans and English. And I will also add a link to your Facebook if people want to follow you, because you share a lot about your journey on there as well. And thank you for sharing your story. It's incredibly brave.
Thank you, Jana, for having me. And thank you for our chat yesterday. You know, I haven't really gone so deep into everything like I did yesterday for a long time, and it opened a lot of good things for me. And I sat in the car on the way to work this morning, and I was like thinking about everything, and I'm just so grateful for my journey and for what God has done in my life, and the amazing people that God has put on my path to walk His journey with me. So thank you.
It's a pleasure. Have a lovely day.
Yeah, you too, Jana.
Bye, Daniela.
Bye.